All right. Good evening, everyone. Once again, you have myself, Brother Nate, and also my son, Brother Nate, also as well. I'd like to say good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Hebrew News Network, where we try to discern prophecy according to the Bible. So we're going to get right into it. As you can see from the title of today, the topic we'll be talking about today, once we get toward the end, is backlash for talking about God in school, and mainly just addressing if this is an issue or not necessarily an issue, but the effects of being able to have God brought up in school or prayer in school. And we'll look at an article to see what gender this right here. But we're gonna start off first with some news that's going on in the world. Good evening, Sister Cheryl. How are you? Nate, Sister Cheryl speaking.
Good evening.
There we go. All right. So the first article we have, as you can see here, it says Trump sets deadline for Iran coinciding with the end of Ramadan. So, and as you can see the date here, so this right here is February 12th. So we just read a few things on that and then move on to our next one. Let's see here. So Nate, you can start right there, and then we'll go probably to about right there. Don't want to spend too much time on it.
Okay. President Trump has just said that Iran will have about a month to make a deal. If you look at the calendar, about a month from now, we will be very close to the end of Ramadan. I think that President Trump is hoping that the military preparations that the U.S. is making in the Middle East will convince Iran to make significant concessions. But the Iranians have repeatedly told us that they must be allowed to continue to enrich uranium and that there will be absolutely no negotiations regarding their ballistic missile program or their support for proxies in the region. So there is no way that a deal is going to happen. In the end, either President Trump will pull the trigger or the Israelis will go in alone. Either way, it appears that a final showdown with Iran is coming. With each passing day, we get closer to the fateful moment when the missiles will start flying. We are being told that the U.S. buildup that we are witnessing in the Middle East right now is unprecedented in scale. The pace of the U.S. Air Force's buildup of its Air Force in preparation for a strike on Iran continues to be unprecedented in scale. At least 5 KC-135R/T tanker aircraft took off from RAF Mildenhall en route to southern Europe. They were deployed to support a flight of 6 F-35A Lightning II fighters belonging to the Green Mountain Boys squadron. The aircraft are being deployed from Lakenheath Air Base in the UK to Muwafaq Salti Air Base in Jordan. According to air traffic monitoring data, the flow of military transport aircraft also remains high and covers several directions at once. On top of everything else, the Wall Street Journal is reporting that another aircraft carrier strike group has been ordered to get ready to go to the Middle East. The Pentagon has told a second aircraft carrier strike group to prepare to deploy to the Middle East as the U.S. military readies for a potential attack on Iran, according to 3 U.S. officials. President Trump said Tuesday that he was weighing sending a second carrier to the Middle East to prepare for military actions if negotiations with Iran failed. The order to deploy could be issued in a matter of hours, one of the officials said. Adding another carrier to the mix will definitely raise tensions in the region. According to the Journal, the most likely carrier to be deployed is the USS George H.W. Bush. One of the officials said the Pentagon was readying a carrier to deploy in 2 weeks, likely from the U.S. East Coast. The aircraft carrier USS George H.W. Bush is completing a series of training exercises off the coast of Virginia, and it could potentially expedite those exercises, officials say. The warship can launch and recover strike, electronic attack, and reconnaissance aircraft. That includes carrier versions of the F-35 Lightning stealth fighter, according to a Navy official. The Wall Street Journal has previously reported any military strike inside Iran would likely use stealth aircraft such as F-35 or F-22 Raptor jet fighters and B-2 Spirit bombers.
Okay. All right. So that's enough on that. Like I say, we don't want to go too much in it. But just looking at that right there. Hey, brother Kevin, how you doing? And also Debbie, good evening as well.
Good evening.
Yes, sir. So just looking at that right there. So that was that article was the 12th, right? So the reason why I didn't want to go too much into it because some things have changed since that time. But let's just go look at this right here and see what else is going on pertaining to that. Let's see here. All right. So this one here, this is a CNN article, somewhat around the same vein. U.S. sending second aircraft carrier group to Middle East, sources say. This is February 13th. The other one was February 12th. This is February 13th. And we also have an update today, February 17th, as to what's going on now. So the U.S. Navy's Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group operates as a joint multi-domain force with the U.S. Air Force B-52 Stratofortress on November 13th, 2025. So that's what this picture is from, 2025. But this article is from a few days ago. The Pentagon is sending the second aircraft carrier group, the USS Gerald Ford, to the Middle East, according to a senior administration official and three sources familiar with the matter. A move that puts pressure on Iran, even as President Donald Trump has said talks with Tehran will continue. Trump told reporters Friday he's dispatching the second carrier group in case he's unable to reach a diplomatic agreement. Quote, in case we don't make a deal, we'll need it, unquote. He said later, adding the ships would depart if diplomacy is successful. The Ford Carrier Strike Group, the U.S. most advanced, has been positioned in the Caribbean Sea for several months amid Trump's campaign in Venezuela, which has included strikes on suspected drug boats in the Caribbean and culminated in the capture of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro in Caracas. It will now join the USS Abraham Lincoln in the Middle East region, expanding Trump's options for a potential strike on Iran. The move was first reported by the New York Times. The change comes even as Trump told Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu during a White House visit on Wednesday he intends to keep pursuing a deal with Iran, which is what the next article is going to show us. It seems like they may be making some progress on that, but essentially it's going to lead to war anyway. But right now it's just mainly wars and rumors of wars, so we just keep an eye out for this stuff. Quote, they want to make a deal as they should want to make a deal, unquote, Trump said last week. They know the consequences if they don't. If they don't make a deal, the consequences are very steep, so we'll see what happens. Trump said Thursday that he hopes to get a deal with Iran over the next month. But the president has not ruled out ordering new strikes and has ordered a buildup of assets that would allow for a major U.S. air campaign against Iran's nuclear and missile assets. Aside from the USS Abraham Lincoln, several U.S. warships have been positioned in the region, comprising what Trump has referred to as a flotilla. The USS Abraham Lincoln arrived in the Indian Ocean last month, putting it closer to assisting any potential U.S. operations targeting Iran. Days later, the Lincoln carrier was transiting the Arabian Sea about 500 miles from Iran's southern coast when it shot down an Iranian drone. Meanwhile, delegations from the U.S. and Iran met earlier this month in Oman for the first round of negotiations since the U.S. and Israel struck Iran last summer. The talks came after Trump held off on strikes against Iran after seriously considering military action in response to the country's brutal crackdown on protesters. So just looking at this type of stuff right here, like I said, what's up, Brother Nelson? So, so just looking at this type of stuff right here, mainly, like I said, it's just a lot of wars and rumors of wars that's being chalked up right now. And that was the first one that Nate read. That was on the 12th. This one here is the 13th. So now let's look at what we have for today. Yeah, let's see what we have here. All right. Iran US talks in. So they did have their meeting, they did talk. Now, so the article is going to make it seem like, everything is kosher, they trying to work out a deal, which is good, like I said, I ain't in no rush for this stuff to really jump off. Are you in a rush, Nate?
Yes and no.
Yeah. I'm in a rush for the Lord
Yes
to
no.
come back. I
Yeah.
want the Lord to come back, but I don't want to go through this, y'all.
Skip all the
Yeah,
destruction.
it's almost like Job say, hide me in the grave till your wrath be
Exactly.
past. But then again, I don't want to hide in the grave. You know what I'm saying? Like it's
Right. Yeah.
with much wisdom comes much sorrow. However, at the same time, they are communicating. Netanyahu did go to the White House last week and speak with Trump. And as we can see right here from this article, Nate, if you can, go ahead and read that. And we'll see that they were able to come to some type of resolution today. So you can pick it up right here.
Talks between Iran and the United States, which began at 9:30 a.m. in Geneva, Switzerland today, ended very shortly thereafter. Both sides have reportedly departed the negotiation venue. Meanwhile, the USS Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier and its strike group transited the Strait of Gibraltar this morning, moving from the Atlantic Ocean into the Mediterranean Sea.
Where you at? Hold on, I lost it. Okay, there we go.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
Below is an image showing the ship in the strait this morning. It is expected that the vessel and its strike group will reach the eastern Mediterranean and be within range of Iran in 3 days. Iran's foreign minister has released a statement.
But that's the update. That's the update right there.
Okay.
That's the update for from today at 9:48 a.m. this morning. So that's why I wanted to point out, because you remember the 12th and the 13th. We saw that they were moving all type of stuff, all type of aircraft over to the Middle East. And today, well, this article here was from a few days ago, getting ready for the meeting to take place. And then today they actually met, and the update came out this morning. So that's what I wanted to point out to you guys. So that's what you're reading now, the update. Okay, you can go ahead now.
Discussions were completely serious, and the atmosphere was more constructive than the last round. We agreed on guiding principles to begin drafting text of a potential deal. Good progress was made. The path ahead is clear. Drafting will be hard work, but the path has started. No date set for third round of U.S. talks. Analysis. We've heard a variation of this readout from Aragchi before about an agreeing to understanding of principles which later fell apart. This is Iran's regime saying and doing enough to earn another meeting to keep the process moving. It appears to me that both sides for now want to keep up appearances that things are progressing despite the vast gaps in their positions. The Islamic Republic views the diplomatic process itself as protection, insulating it from further economic and military blows and allowing it to get ready for military action. The U.S., which has a deadline of around a month that puts us in mid-March, also needs more time to set up the CENTCOM theater and for failed diplomacy to legitimize military action. In the lead up to the 12-day war, Aragchi also gave readouts suggesting they succeeded in reaching a better understanding on principles, that there was good progress, and that work would begin on drawing up a framework for a potential nuclear deal. Months later, there were Israeli and U.S. strikes.
So in other words, we just got to take that with a grain of salt, right? It looks like, they may be coming to some resolution, but once again, just like just like the article was saying in the analysis, that they said the same thing last time, and then a month later, they had the 12-day war. So just keep your eyes on that. We'll definitely keep you guys updated as to what's going on with that as well. But I wouldn't take that as gospel, in other words, because we all know how the U.S. is, and as long as Netanyahu is involved, it's almost like he couldn't go to the G20 a few weeks ago. I think it was the World Economic Forum. He couldn't go. Benjamin Netanyahu could not go. He was invited, but he couldn't show up because of the war crimes that he has committed. He wasn't able to go. He was in fear of being arrested. So, with this guy here, man, like I said, as long as he's around, more than likely he's gonna get what he wants. Probably the whole reason why he was coming over here talking to Trump in the first place, to try to convince him. But it seems like Trump doesn't want to do it. But at the same time, America has been so involved and engaged in Israel for so long, trying to uphold this lie. It's almost like they just gonna do it no matter what, regardless of what makes sense and what don't make sense. It's just like they're gonna go along with Netanyahu. So, but we'll definitely keep an eye on that for you all. All right, so on to our next one here. Let's see here. On to the next one. All right, so here we have a short video we like to play for you all. Let me just see right quick. Let me see what the time frame was. And okay. All right, so this is a 2-minute and 50-second video. Nate, before we did that, did you want to present anything?
Not at the moment.
Not at the moment. Okay. All right. But we have a 2-minute and 50-second video I want you guys to look at. It's called NATO Crumbles as the U.S. withdraws admirals, troops from Europe. This is important because, as we know, based on the Bible, that eventually, Europe will have to form their own army. So it's definitely imperative that we, point this out, because we can kind of see the efforts being ramped up for Trump to pull America out of Europe and force them to go ahead and do what they need to do to protect themselves. So that's what this right here is looking at. We just want to point that out and just keep an eye on it, because at some point it's going to happen. So let's look at this right now. So.
Has the start of the end of NATO begun? We ask this because the United States is pulling back its troops while Washington is preparing to hand over two of NATO's most critical command posts to European leadership. Allied Joint Force Command in Naples and Joint Force Command in Norfolk will soon move out of American hands and into the control of European officers. Both commands are currently led by US admirals, and that is about to change now. With Italy taking over the base in Naples and Britain in Norfolk, the shift is in alignment with President Donald Trump's demands that Europe must take responsibility for its own security. His administration wants a NATO that no longer depends on Washington to lead, fund, and manage its core military structure. The message from the White House has been clear. NATO must become European-led, and it is making multiple moves toward this. Recently, the Pentagon has reportedly informed allies of a withdrawal of around 200 American personnel from NATO structures across Europe. These exits effectively, roughly 30 NATO-linked bodies are affected here, including specialized training centers and expert groups. American troops are also leaving key locations such as NATO's Intelligence Fusion Center in the UK, the Allied Special Operation Forces Command in Brussels, and a maritime command structure in Portugal. This transition comes amid political strain within the alliance and rising tensions in the Arctic and North Atlantic, especially with respect to Greenland. Last February, remember, US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth publicly told European allies to take ownership of the conventional security on the continent. And Europe responded months later. At the NATO summit in The Hague, leaders pledged to raise defense spending to 5% of their national GDPs, more than double the earlier target. But despite that commitment, Pentagon plans to redirect military resources away from Europe and toward other priorities, including the Indo-Pacific and the US border security. For now, nearly 80,000 American troops remain stationed in Europe. NATO officials stress that the US presence is still substantial. Yet the direction is unmistakable. The balance of power inside NATO appears to be clearly shifting.
Can see, as you guys can see, so that's something we wanted to point out. What you think about that, Nate?
I think that's a crazy shift. That's a crazy shift. My goodness.
It's fast too, right?
They're giving the U.S. the boot.
When the U.S. want the boot,
Yeah.
like you say, it said their spending went up 5%. As far as how much they have been contributing to NATO. So it said those countries are now spending more. Trump was saying they were spending like 1%, 2%, and America was paying for everything. So now he's kind of forcing them to step up and do their job. But what most people are missing and don't understand, that this is all a part of prophecy. You know what I'm saying? This is all a part of prophecy, and it has to happen. It just so happened that we happen to be alive during this time to see it. So that's one thing we wanted to point out. We'll move on to our next article here. And let's see here. All right, and this one here is referring to you. I'm sorry.
Before we got too far, I did want to. I did realize one article that I have might fit closer to the two we just read.
Okay. Would you like to present it?
Yeah, we can go ahead.
Okay.
Let me screen. You just have to bring it up.
Okay.
So we were just talking about Iran and the U.S. having talks about coming to a peace agreement, and this is like we read in the last article, them coming up with this explanation that they're making some progress is really just to save face while they prepare for something more, is what it looks like. Because when you read this article, it don't look like they want anything near peace. So it says Iranian demonstrators torched Baal statue on 47th Islamic Revolution anniversary and chant "Death to Israel." So the picture says people marched near Azadi Tower in Tehran on February 11th, 2026, during a rally marking the 47th anniversary of the 1979 Islamic Revolution. The Persian calendar date of Bahman 22 celebrates the anniversary of the resignation of the ousted Shah's last prime minister and the formal assumption of power by revolutionary leader Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini. So Iran marked the 47th anniversary of the Islamic Revolution with protesters burning a Baal effigy featuring Trump and anti-Israel symbolism in Tehran. Iran celebrated the 47th anniversary of the Islamic Revolution and the overthrow of the U.S.-backed monarchy of 1979 by setting fire to a statue depicting the demon god Baal with the Star of David carved into it. The effigy also adorned an image of U.S. President Donald Trump and the number 666. The demonstration was organized under the banner of 22 Bahman in central squares in Tehran and other major cities. Demonstrator chanted death to Israel as they set fire to the demon god Baal.
Mm.
There's also a video on it.
You want to see it?
See if I can pull it.
Oh, wow.
So that is Baal. Let's see
Wow.
where Trump is. They're gonna set it on fire.
Wow. Wow. Hmm.
So what they're chanting is, I believe, death to Israel.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, so I thought we should read that closer to what we just read in the beginning because,
Yeah.
this doesn't look anything like peace talks. If you ask me, I think,
Yeah.
we're pretty far from it. But that
Yeah.
was pretty
Well,
much it on that.
okay. Well, definitely, man. That's why I was saying earlier, and even how Hal Turner was pointing out how they always talk about they got a solution and stuff like that, and they always end up fighting. But definitely the people, I think the people are fed up over there. You know what I'm saying? Especially Iran. Like Iran really don't mess with nobody. Iran don't mess with nobody. Russia don't mess with anybody for the most part. But they keep getting provoked. So I think at some point these individuals will be sick and tired of it. And I
Yeah.
don't know if you noticed, they had an hourglass up there.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? Had an
Time
hourglass,
is
like,
coming.
yeah,
We're
it's
running
just
out of time.
right, running out of time, man. Just a matter of time, And the thing about that is that Iran that's a part of the Lord's army, man. So once they wake them boys up, man, it's gonna be on and popping. But we know for the most part we may have skirmishes here and there, you know, and at the same time while these are going on, while they're having talks about fighting against Iran and you know, at the same time, on the other hand, you have these conversations about the European Union. America pulling back so Europe can form their own army and stuff like that. So all these things are coming together, man. All these things are coming together, and it's going to be a major event once it all coincides and collides, man. So it's definitely good stuff, man. So still in the same vein, like these, like I said before, these are major characters in this movie here. These are major players on the chessboard. So let's see what is going on with this particular article here. We're going to start this at the beginning. And this right here is just showing how the EU is considering partial membership for the Ukraine. So let's see here. I need to take this off right here. I'll add another one. Okay.
Good afternoon and welcome back. You're watching the Midday Report and I'm your host, Claudia Czerwinska. We begin with Brussels. The EU is working on potentially extending some membership rights to Ukraine. This partial membership would come ahead of a future full accession to the bloc. For more details, let's now go live to our correspondent Alex Cadier in Brussels. Hello, Alex. So based on the information that we have as of now, what does the EU have to offer Ukraine? Do we know more details?
Well, we know that the European Union is considering completely change in the way the EU does this. Let me give you an example. For now, as we've seen with previous countries, Poland back in 2004, other countries more recently joining the EU, it is a very long, very drawn-out process. You have to tick every single box before you are a member of the European Union. Reforms to your rule of law, reforms to your economy, reforms to your standards. All these things have to be aligned with the EU before you join. Now, this new proposal by the European Commission would suggest that Ukraine gets effectively EU light. It is a member of the European Union with some caveats, with some limits, until it does the work. It is going to be a very, very strong political symbol to say to the Ukrainians they are members of the European Union. They will benefit from so much of the perks that come with being an EU member. Now, exactly what that means, not clear yet. There will be a lot of questions about agriculture. There'll be a lot of questions about migration. There will be a lot of questions about defense, about security. What does Ukraine get? What does it not get in these phased approaches? Another interesting detail about this story, it won't just be Ukraine. You'll have Montenegro and Albania looking closely at this and thinking, well, we could also use this system. It is a significant change of pace from the European Union, who has consistently said Ukraine has to go through all the steps. An important clarification, Claudia, this does not mean that Ukraine gets full membership without doing the work that every other EU member has done. It's just that it progresses into the EU slower rather than all in one go once all the work is done, Claudia.
Thank you for providing us with details, Alex. This was Alex Kadir reporting live from Brussels.
All right. So what if the Ukraine is going to be part of the 10?
It's the only thing I was thinking.
Right. But from my understanding, I think Ukraine is a part of Russia, though. You know what I'm saying? Which is why I think they separated in Russia. I think they was a part of Russia, and they happened to break off once the Soviet Union split. If I'm not mistaken. I don't really know the history on it. I do know that back in the day, they presented to us in America, and probably Sister Cheryl, Brother Kevin, and I think Nelson may be old enough to remember the Berlin Wall. Back in the day, remember they had the Berlin Wall up in the Soviet Union, and I believe that was Berlin Wall. They had the wall up, and it was like people were trapped inside the country or whatever. But I think during that time, the Ukraine might have been a part of Russia, if I'm not mistaken. So, but we're gonna see how this all plays out. Like they said, Ukraine gonna be, a part of EU right now. It's almost like a light.
Bring them under
yeah,
protection.
Yeah, and like they said, it's gonna be like a light version.
Right.
Yeah, either you in or you out. You know what I'm saying? I guess they say that because they don't want all the other countries to get mad about how they had to become a part of the European Union, and the Ukraine just coming in, they don't have to really do all the work, which is why the reporter kept emphasizing, well, they still gonna have to do the work like everybody else. Yeah, but they still breaking the rules, though. If you heard that in the in that, it's certain laws that established for them on how they get into the European Union, but Ukraine is just going all around that. So we'll keep an eye on that as well. Let's move over to anything else on that before we move on to the next one.
Sure.
Huh?
I don't have anything.
Okay. All right. So let's go to this one here. Let's see here. And this right here is just a short that I want you all to pay attention to. And this here just kind of points out how all the pieces of the puzzle come together. So let's check this out right here. It's very short.
The realization that not everything is plannable, not everything is going to be hunky-dory in the next 20 years. I'm not saying it is going wrong tomorrow, but we have to realize it's not a given that we are in peace. And that's why we have the plans. That's why we are preparing for a conflict with Russia and the terror groups, if it comes to it, if they attack us. We're not seeking any conflict. The realization.
Okay, so y'all, first off, y'all see right there, right? That's NATO, right? Okay, that's NATO. And, if you heard what he said we're preparing for war with Russia. Didn't he say that?
Well, I didn't hear it.
You didn't
Maybe
hear
I
it? Here, I'm going to play it again. Hold on 1 second. It's not long, so it's not going to hurt anything.
The realization that not everything is plannable, not everything is going to be hunky-dory in the next 20 years. I'm not saying it is going wrong tomorrow, but we have to realize it's not a given that we are in peace. And that's why we have the plans. That's why we are preparing for a conflict with Russia and the terror groups, if it comes to it, if they attack us. We're not seeking any conflict.
He's a liar. They lying. They always be starting stuff, man. Talking about they're not if they started with us, but they're provoking everything. They're the one that's backing the Ukraine. They keep on, trying to come at Russia, and Russia keep on dragging them, but they keep bothering them. But did you hear what he said though? He said we're preparing for conflict with Russia.
Mm-hmm.
He even said, I don't think this is 20 years away. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so things that we have to pay attention to, because everybody, like I was saying earlier, it's like everybody is getting into places, you know what I'm saying, based on how the Lord has everything set up. It's like all the pieces are just, getting in their places, man. Like for him to bluntly say that we're preparing for conflict with Russia. So it just makes it pretty obvious that when you have Europe now trying to put these, get their defense together, we know what it's for. And he said it. Then he had to went back. He went back to try to fix it. But if they mess with us, that is, you know what I'm saying. But Stevie Wonder can see where we're going at. If you have understanding on the word, we can see and comprehend where this is starting to go. So, but we're gonna move on to the next one. You have anything before we pull up the next one?
Not on that.
Okay.
Well, no, I was gonna say, he's saying, he doesn't see it happening tomorrow, but I really don't see how, after everything that happens, how we would just go from, the climate that they have over there now, or, just in the world right now, to complete peace. I don't think there's any way backward.
Yeah, you're right about that. It's like it's a snowball effect.
Right. But I think that's what he was saying anyway, in a way.
What's that?
Saying that, we're prepared for that.
Right. And if we ain't prepared, we getting prepared. Yeah.
That's right. That's the option that is on the table.
Yeah.
It's a real possibility. So
yeah, it's you know what though, man? Like let's just go read some of the Bible right quick. Let's go look at something right quick, because this is what's happening right here. Let me see. I think it's I think it is it might be Revelation 16. But I just want to point out something right quick, because the reason why I wanted to point it out, because they sound like they don't know what they're doing. You know what I'm saying? They sound like they're all over the place, man. But Isaiah 13, right quick. Isaiah 13. I just want to point this out. Isaiah 13 and 1-4. If you can read it. But and the crazy thing about this is that you don't hear Russia talking about attacking nobody. You know what I'm saying? Like Russia and Iran, they trying to stay peaceful. China, they trying to stay peaceful. Like we saw a few weeks ago, China said, if you want war, we'll give you war. You know what I'm saying? And then remember, and the guy, he started explaining some of the material they got. Like,
Right.
we'll demolish y'all, you know what I'm saying? So it's like they chilling, they not trying to mess with nobody. And then you got the European Union over here, which is Satan's army, you know, which we're gonna see. That's what it talks about. They came up out of the bottomless pit. But you can see they over here, and they coming up with stuff, and they don't even know what they doing. You know, but that just go to show in Revelation 16, they being led by those spirits that came out of their mouth, those unclean spirits that came out of their mouth like frogs. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what's behind their movement, behind their actions. They don't even know it. But ultimately, I'm just read this one verse 14. Well, 13, 3 and 4, if you can. Isaiah 13, 3 and 4. Ultimately, this is what's going on right here. And I say that because, like I say, it seems like they don't know what they're doing. But let's see who knows what he's doing. Verse 3 and 4.
I have commanded my sanctified ones. I have also called my mighty ones for mine anger, even them that rejoice in my highness.
Mm-hmm.
The noise of a multitude in the mountains, like as of a great people, a tumultuous noise of the kingdoms of nations gathered together. The Lord of hosts mustereth the host of the battle.
Okay, so that's what I wanted to point out. So first and foremost, like it says here, it says in 3, he said, I have commanded my sanctified ones. So this is the Lord referring to, the army that's coming out of the east, pertaining to the continent over there, European continent, and also African continent. East, all the way east of that would be Russia, Iran, China, all their allies, right? Mainly the BRICS nations. And like the Bible saying, he said, I have commanded my sanctified ones. So not that they're righteous in any type of manner, but the Lord has set them apart to take care of his business. Because somebody going to take down the European Union, right? Or they're going to fight against each other. And that's why it says, I've commanded my sanctified ones. I've also called my mighty ones from mine anger, even them that rejoice in my highness. He said, the noise of a multitude in the mountains, like as of a great people, a tumultuous noise of the kingdoms of nations gathered together. So this right here, when we get down to them being gathered together, that's going to take us down into Armageddon, right? But I just want y'all to see who's behind it. Like it said the Lord of hosts. We talking about Jesus. The Father and the Son, they behind this. It said the Lord of hosts mustereth the host of the battle. So we seeing the different articles about how Europe is doing their thing. They trying to get their European Union together and stuff like that, and America trying to pull back. Then you got like I say, they kind of going crazy. They all over the place. But at the same time, you still got Russia and Iran and stuff like that. They working together. If we were to spend more time on it, we can show you how Russia and China is saying things about, stay away from Iran. It's going to be trouble for y'all and all that type of stuff. But, the Lord is the one that's mustering up the battle, which is why Europe to me sounds like they're confused. They don't sound like they know what they're doing, but God knows what's happening. And eventually it's going to all lead to all out war. So. All right, so this right here, we're going to bring this one up. The next article we have is referring to the peace deal, the board of peace, and we're going to read this right here. All right, breaking. This is February 16th. Trump to convene board of peace in D.C. Thursday, and Canada is not invited. The board of peace will prove to be the most consequential international body in history, and it is my honor to serve as its chairman, Trump said. All right, let's see here. Get this on up. President Donald Trump will convene the first official meeting of his Board of Peace in Washington on Thursday, and Canada is not involved. So that is 2 days from now. Trump said members have pledged $5 billion for Gaza reconstruction and committed thousands of personnel for a proposed international stabilization force. Formal announcements are expected at the meeting, reports Global News. Now, my only concern is, why is it saying that it's why they gotta have an international stable force for Gaza? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Trump says members have pledged $5 billion for Gaza reconstruction and committed thousands of personnel for a proposed international stabilization force. We definitely keep
And
an
this
eye
is
on
the
that.
Board of Peace, right?
Yeah, this is the Board of Peace. Yep.
Okay.
Because we got the next one is what we have in the text with which you can read next. But I'm gonna read this and then we'll see who else is coming in. It's the next article.
Okay.
It says the Board of Peace will prove to be the most consequential international body in history, and it is my honor to serve as its chairman, Trump said. Indonesia's military confirmed up to 8,000 troops could be ready for deployment by late June, marking the first firm commitment tied to the initiative. The October 10th U.S. brokered ceasefire between Israel and Hamas calls for an armed international force to oversee security and disarm Hamas. Why? Does that make sense to you, Nate? Does that make sense to you guys in the chat? Why international force? Does that make sense?
No.
It don't. I think why? I'm trying to figure out why. Somebody was pointing this out.
I mean, I guess
Somebody.
because they have, I guess, because they're tied in with Israel is the only thing I can think of.
Yeah. I mean, it could be, man. I'm just like international force. Like international is international, man. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. But but that's what we're gonna keep. We're gonna keep an eye on it for an eye on it. Just so they don't try nothing slick or catch us off guard. Under the ceasefire framework, an armed international force would oversee security in Gaza and work to ensure Hamas is disarmed, a central demand of Israel. So far, only limited interests have been shown publicly by potential participant nations. Reconstruction is projected to cost approximately $70 billion, according to estimates from the United Nations, World Bank, and European Union. Much of Gaza's infrastructure has been damaged or destroyed after prolonged Israeli bombardment. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who met with Trump at the White House last week, is not expected at Thursday's meeting. It remains unclear how many of the more than 20 member states will attend. So they have 20 member states. I think that's in the plan right now, in the peace plan now. So that's it on that. But let's go look at something else because from the last time we talked about this, we do have an update. And let's see what this update is. Oh, man. I just closed it out. Hold on one second. That's one thing I hate about this right here. The Mac doesn't let me pull it back up. Let me see if I can find the history on it. Let me switch it over. I got it in my Gmail. I'm going to look at my Gmail right quick. And I'll pull it up like that. Hey, what's that in the email? Did I send you that? Or you put that in there?
I sent that to you.
Oh, yeah. We need to bring that up. We got to bring that up. We got something else in the email we got to bring up, y'all. I didn't even see that, Nate. Let me type this in right quick so we can get this one up. On my keyboard. All right, we going. But until then, that's kind of weird as to why they have an international military to deal with that. Yeah, to be a part of that. I don't understand that. All right, so here it is right here. And if you can, just go ahead and read that for us, please.
Israel joins Board of Peace ahead of Netanyahu-Trump meeting. The Board of Peace is tasked with overseeing the aftermath of the Israel-Hamas war in the Gaza Strip. Trump and Netanyahu to discuss Iran nuclear talks. and regional threat.
Yeah, that's just the video right there. That's not.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Israel formally joined the Board of Peace on Wednesday ahead of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's meeting with President Donald Trump at the White House. Netanyahu signed the document in the presence of Secretary of State Marco Rubio shortly before his scheduled talk with Trump, marking a diplomatic step as the two leaders prepared to discuss regional security and ongoing conflict in the Middle East. The Prime Minister said on X that while the talks would cover several issues, including Gaza, they would first and foremost center on negotiations with Iran. Leaders from 17 different countries participated in the initial Gaza Board of Peace Charter signing ceremony in Davos, Switzerland in late January, including presidents and other senior government officials from Latin America, Europe, the Middle East, and Central and Southeast Asia. Netanyahu was not present at the ceremony, where world leaders signed the founding charter alongside Trump, who was seated at the center of the stage. His office, however, said he would accept Trump's invitation to join the Peace Board, following earlier concerns he had raised about the makeup of the Gaza Executive Board, particularly the roles of Qatar and Turkey.
That's right. There you go.
A handful of other countries were also invited by the White House to join, including Russia, Belarus, France, Germany, Vietnam, Finland, Ukraine, Ireland, Greece, and China, among others. Poland and Italy on Wednesday said they would not join. Netanyahu's visit to Washington comes as the U.S. expands its military presence in the Middle East while talks with Iran remain ongoing.
Wow.
Trump has
That's
deployed
good on that. That's good on that. We spoke on this earlier. So I just wanted to bring that out. But you know what though? You know, it's like in the Bible where it talks about when they cry peace and there is no peace. That's exactly what that sounds like, because man, they are definitely making an effort to push peace, but ain't gonna be no peace in no doggone Russia and China.
Nah.
You know what I'm saying? Ain't gonna be no peace.
I don't think this Board of Peace it really sounds like this Board of Peace is made to kind of, dang it, what am I trying to say?
Quell, kind of bring it down a little bit.
Well, no, kind of to force their will on Iran. You know, because it's not like Iran is a part of this board of peace.
Right.
You know, but Israel is a part of this Board of Peace.
Right.
So it seems like Trump and, he's trying to rally up as many people as he can to kind of force their will, the U.S. and Israel's will upon Iran.
And it's not going to work. It's not going to work because
if anything, seems like it might just piss him off.
Yeah, we're going to see though. Because I don't think those guys are stupid by a long shot. China and Russia. I don't think they dumb by a long shot. You know what I'm saying? They definitely think they slick though. He definitely trying it.
Right.
So we got one more we want to look at, and then we're going to get on our topic for this evening. Let's see here. All right. So is there a time on it, Nate?
Yes, this was today. I don't know the time.
I'm saying like the video, like play the whole thing or what?
Oh yeah, it's 2 minutes and 53.
Okay. All right, cool. Okay, China biowarfare no longer far off threat. Biolab found in U.S. neighborhood. Wow. Found in U.S. neighborhood. Lord have mercy. They're on that, right on our back door, man.
Right.
On January 31st, SWAT teams and hazmat crews swarmed a Las Vegas home. What they found was shocking. A secret biological lab hidden in a garage, right in the middle of a neighborhood. This lab was tied to the same Chinese national who was arrested back in 2023 for operating an illegal biolab in Reedley, California. That's where authorities discovered deadly pathogens, Ebola, HIV, tuberculosis, malaria, and even genetically modified mice. Counterintelligence expert Casey Fleming says those two labs are just the beginning of something much more dangerous. He believes Chinese biowarfare is no longer some far-off threat.
The one in California was actually in a warehouse area, but this isn't a residential home, so it's less likely to be discovered, but a whole assortment of very, very nasty viruses, very lethal viruses.
Was it just an uncommon discovery, or are there more of them out there?
You have to assume that there are more out there. The intended purpose is to kill Americans.
Fleming is the author of the book Red Tsunami. He contends the biolabs here in the U.S. are just one piece of a much bigger plan from the CCP.
27 years ago, the Chinese Communist Party said, we don't want to go up against the U.S. militarily. We want to do everything but that. So they redefined what war is. We think war is binary and it involves our military. And that's not the way we can think anymore. This war is about every man, woman, and child being on the front lines to weaken the United States.
Unconventional warfare, not just bombs and bullets, mites, fungi, even viruses targeting our crops with the goal to wipe out America's harvest. And there's more. Imagine another pandemic like COVID-19, but this time it starts right here in the U.S., not overseas.
The Chinese Communist Party is actually working on COVID-2 and COVID-3 and other very, very lethal viruses in the Wuhan lab. Now, these are a combination of, they've been stolen from U.S. labs, they've been stolen from Canadian labs.
Stolen pathogens brought into the United States undetected by the FBI and Homeland Security. What can we do to stop all this, Casey?
Number one, stop buying Chinese goods and services, period. And stop investing in companies who are doing business in China. You're only feeding and funding your enemy.
Fleming believes Americans are ultimately engaged in a spiritual battle.
If you want to boil us completely down, this is God versus Satan in all of its form.
Gary Lane, CBN News.
I didn't even get to see that last part.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's God versus Satan, but China then would be on God's side though, based on the Bible.
Right. The U.S. is supposed to be God.
Right. Yeah, man. They tripping. But you know what though? You know what I think about that? So that just kind of sounds like you throw the rock and hide your hand, like for example, friendly fire, but we blame it on them, you know what I'm saying? Because as secure as America is, you know what I'm saying? Like like how did this stuff get in here? And it was even rumors before with the last pandemic that took place that, it started in North Carolina. If you go back and look at it, you'll see that there is wording out here. There are articles out here that states that, between China and North Carolina, that it had, went back and forth between the two countries as far as how it got in here. So, and I do agree with that, Sister Cheryl. I was thinking about that when he said it. Stop buying goods from China. Like, all the factories in America, for the most part, have been moved out of the country. And all the goods that come into the country, a lot of them are from foreign countries, and China being a major country that we get a lot of our stuff from. So that don't make sense. You know what I'm saying? But definitely interesting article. Once again, Brother Kevin, how is America gonna be God and China Satan? If anybody is God or on God's side, not knowingly, you know what I'm saying? But it would be China and Russia, because that's who the Lord is going to use as his army. And then on the other hand, Satan is going to use the European Union, so they got that mixed up. Wow. All right. So now we get over to our main topic for today, backlash for talking about God in school. And we just want to point this out now, just to kind of give you a background on this right here. Nothing major, anything like that. But first and foremost, I want to know, how do you all feel about religion in school? You know what I'm saying? And when I say that, I mean, as far as, okay, I understand that the Christianity today isn't what we know to be Christianity according to the Bible. But do you think that talking about God in school or discussing the Bible in school or even praying in school, do you guys think that's a problem? Or I mean, and I ask that because you just think about where we are now as opposed to where we were back then. And also keep in mind how the Lord said he reigned on the just as well as the unjust. So what you think about that, Nate?
I definitely think that. I don't think school should be godless.
Mm.
I mean, because nowadays it's been like that for a while, but a lot of kids will spend most of their childhood in school. So it wouldn't hurt to have some type of reminder, whether it's with understanding. But some things are pretty basic, you know, like we heard about them trying to put commandments in school. They may
Mhm.
not have understanding, but you having those commandments, you know, you having those with you throughout your childhood, it'll stick with you.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
why back in the day, even though they didn't have understanding, when they were preaching fire and brimstone in the church,
Mhm.
it was a bit more, modest and not so money driven. Um, when it when it kind of changed over,
Yeah.
that's when it kind of really started to, you know, become
Mhm.
defiled.
Yeah.
Even though it wasn't an understanding in the first place, but just to the point that it can't hurt, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I agree. So looking at the comment here, it says, I don't think someone else's belief should be taught, but we should have the right to pray. Okay, so and when I ask when I make mention of religion, I'm making mention of religion as we know it, not Islam, not Buddhism, because when you look at America, right? America was so-called built on "In God We Trust," right? So that's why, like this being the 250th year anniversary for America, they gonna have a national day of prayer. It's in August, right? And it's supposed to be to rededicate America back to God. So if I can remember correctly, when we were coming up in school, I do remember that the Bible wasn't looked at as bad. The commandments weren't looked at as bad. Prayer wasn't looked at as bad. And we had some sort of, it wasn't the society wasn't like it is today. So my take is if you're gonna keep the Bible out of school, you're gonna keep you know, and once again, Islam ain't even in this question, y'all. I'm talking about just the Bible itself, right? Because that's what was removed. Prayer removed, commandments removed. Okay, so bringing those back. What do y'all think about that? But and just let me know in the chat. But if you don't have that, right, then take all the homosexuality stuff out of school as well. You know what I'm saying? Take the promiscuity out of school. Take the condoms that you give to the kids in school. You know what I'm saying? Get that out of there. Take the sex education out of school. Take all the stuff out of school that's going to influence them one way or another, and deal strictly with the curriculum. Don't put the mess in your curriculum. If you're going to put that stuff in your curriculum, then I think you should put the 10 commandments in there as well. Like every day when those kids go to school and they got to say a pledge to that flag, then then put the what's name out there. Make sure we have those 10 commandments out there. You know what I'm saying? Because what else is gonna fix this mess? You know what I'm saying? It's only God that can fix it. So that's just my take on it. My high school gave courses on different religions. Really? Wow. Hold on, that's Sister Shara.
Mhm.
When I was coming up in school, we ain't had no course on religion at all, but it definitely wasn't. No, now they did do like a little they ain't really do sex education. They had what was it called? It wasn't home economics. That's the
Health,
oh, back in Virginia. Yeah, it was like health. It was called
health
something
class.
else though. Yeah, it was health class, but it was called something. I can't remember what it's called. But I think that's even amazing that they had, religious courses in school. Now, if you're gonna do religion in school, then let the people pick whether or not, you know what I'm saying, what they're gonna have. But as far as religion as a whole, I just think that if this country is set up, if they say it's set up on the Bible, right? You know, like for example, I've been watching something about a Sunday law supposed to be coming. I don't know how true it is. It just seemed like a lot of the 7-day Adventists I've been checking out over the past couple of weeks. It just seemed like they want to push that, but they have no idea or understanding of prophecy at all. But if they're gonna try to push the Sunday law would come from them believing that Sunday is a day of rest, which we know it's not. But if you're gonna do that, then go ahead and put the commandments out there then. Get a kid something to, give them a guideline on how to conduct themselves, because what we got right now is not good at all as far as school overall. But
Right.
I just think the commandments, as far as them praying and stuff like that, I wouldn't want my kid going there and praying with them. But I wouldn't mind my child, walking in the classroom and seeing the commandments on the on the wall or something like that. I wouldn't mind that, as opposed to just having all type of immorality being pushed through school. So that brings us to this point right here. Now you can go ahead and read that.
Haywood County School Services receives
Wait,
backlash after
wait. What you say?
Haywood County School. Oh, what did I say?
Services.
Oh wow, just like today. Hold on.
Yeah.
Haywood County Schools receive. I read receives in school.
Yeah, services, right? Yeah.
Haywood County Schools receives backlash after mandatory religious school assembly. Haywood County, Tennessee, Haywood County Schools is changing its practice after receiving concerns about a mandatory religious assembly held in December. According to documents from the Freedom from Religion Foundation, a concerned community member reported that Haywood High School held an assembly during the school day featuring Tennessee rapper Project Pat on December 5th. During the alleged mandatory assembly, an adult questioned students about their religious beliefs, specifically asking whether they identified as Christian or Muslim before leading them in prayer. Project Pat then spoke to the students about God, quoted the Bible, and led them in prayer. Project Pat passed out a book called The Tongue, A Creative Force by Charlie Capps. The Freedom from Religion Foundation argued that the assembly constituted a violation of First Amendment protections. In their statement to the district, the organization emphasized that students have the First Amendment right to be free from religious indoctrination in their public schools, including when attending school-sponsored assemblies. Public schools may not show favoritism toward or coerce belief or participation in religion. The Haywood County School Superintendent responded to the foundation, saying the district understands the importance of its students and employees' First Amendment rights and agreed to take caution when choosing guests.
Okay. So my take on that is you got an individual. Project Pat is a famous rapper from Tennessee, right? And the simple fact that you had him to the school was more so based on who he is. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't believe I can just go into a school just by my name alone and just be able to talk to the kids. You know what I'm saying? But if you guys know about Project Pat, he's he came from the background of Juicy J, like that's the brother Juicy J them, I think so. And 3-6 Mafia, which just with the group alone, it's 3-6 Mafia. You know what I'm saying? Or 666 Mafia. So we're talking about 3 6s, So most people know him by that, but he had a come to Jesus moment in a sense, raised up in the church and stuff like that. And like I was watching one of his interviews, And he was just saying, I can't do this church stuff. That's for old people, the rules and the laws and stuff. Like, I can't do that. And then he said one day he walked into his mother's house and he just told the Lord that, he want to change, but I can't do what they doing though, you know what I'm saying? But he want to change. And he said he had to come to Jesus moment, Lord, let him know he was saved and all that type of stuff. He believed that Jesus Christ died for us and whatever, But at that moment, that's when he started professing Jesus. As a matter of fact, he's on a song that just came out recently by another artist from Louisiana. I can't remember his name. He doing Christian rap now, and Project Pat was just on the Christian rap, and now he's going to school talking about Jesus. Albeit he doesn't have the understanding that we have, but he got a testimony. You know what I'm saying? And the testimony is that the Lord changed his life. Now, hopefully, he'll at some point he'll come into the Word. The more and more the Word gets out, but just understand how much damage this individual did. Like with his music, it was raunchy, it was nasty. Matter of fact, he's the one that sung the song Chicken Head. And he also known for some other songs, right? But the schools will allow that though. I think like Sexy Red went to a school in New York, middle school, if I'm not mistaken. They'll allow that to come in, but this guy comes in and he wants to tell them about Jesus and stuff like that. Then all of a sudden that's an issue because I think they're suing him. I wouldn't have asked what their belief is. I just would have told them if I think going in there dealing with school, you're gonna talk about religion and stuff like that. I would just make sure if anybody's not uncomfortable with it, I'll talk to the teacher about them being able to leave class, and come back once we're done. But Brother Kevin, that's a good point. I didn't think about that. As you can see, he said, yes, I agree about the commandments as well, and a moment of silence instead of prayer. I definitely agree with that. That works out just fine. And at the same time, because like a moment of silence, you can't tell nobody what they doing during that silence. Like you don't know what they're doing, But I definitely think they should at least have the commandments in there and not making a big deal about somebody coming in there talking about the Lord, if this is supposed to be a country built on Christianity. What you think, son?
Well, I think he may have been able to be a little bit more conspicuous because it's been that way for a while now. I remember even, when I was in school, I would wonder. I didn't understand, as a kid, but I would wonder why don't they ever talk about God?
Mm-hmm.
And that's back when I was in school. So, he could have been a little bit more, like I said, conspicuous.
Yeah.
But, outside of that, like you said, parents should know about it. You can decide whether or not you allow your kid to go.
Right.
But I don't see nothing wrong with that. Like you said, they don't see nothing wrong with Sexy Red and, all these, different artists that come now preaching a different message.
Right. Right.
I would treat it in the same manner. If you don't want your kid to go, then don't let them go.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it shouldn't be something that's wrong to do. But
right.
The world hates God. They did when he came in the flesh, and they do to this day. So
right.
not surprising at the end of the day.
Yeah, anything, whatever type of form it is, like whether it's the absolute truth or whether it's somebody trying to find the truth in the Bible, if it has anything to do with the Bible, they hate it. I just saw this. So praying over their food, schools now do not allow them to pray. Wow. That's crazy,
That's crazy.
man. Yeah, that's
I would
crazy.
pray anyway.
Right. But that's the world we live in, That's the world we live in. And like I say, it just shows how they push on righteousness, but instead of righteousness, they want to get rid of that. And that's what we're going to look at right quick before we go out. Let's go look at it. And you definitely got to have a scripture, Nate. Got to find something.
I got
one. Okay. And you can go ahead and read yours. I'm going to look for mine right quick if you don't mind.
Okay. I have Acts 4. This
What you
is
got?
when Acts 4 is when Peter and John healed the lame man. And the
Okay.
Sadducees saw it and they put him in prison.
Yes. Acts 4. Okay. What verse you? I'm gonna read it for you.
I'm trying to see because there's some good stuff.
We can move around.
I'll
It's
say
cool.
we could start at verse 13.
Verse 13.
Actually, we'll just start at 1 and then we'll kind of skip down.
Okay. All right, cool. This is Acts chapter 4, verse 1. And as they spake unto the people, the priests and the captain of the temple and the Sadducees came upon them, being grieved that they taught the people and preached through Jesus the resurrection from the dead.
Right. So, like I said, it's been this way. There's nothing new under the sun. It says being grieved. It's really bothered them that, they were out there preaching Jesus. And not only that, performing miracles, doing something good. Project Pat, even though he had good intentions and, it was without understanding, what he was doing is not bad for them. It's not as opposed to the contrary of having, a contract, them telling you about, how to change your parts and, having some random artist come, that is a good, something in the positive direction, but just because it has something to do with God, like I said, it's been this way from the beginning. It says being grieved that they taught the people and preached through Jesus, the resurrection from the dead. And then you can read verse 3.
And they laid hands on them and put them in hold until the next day, for it was now eventide.
Right. So they
Howbeit,
didn't do nothing wrong except for preach Jesus, and they put them in prison or, arrested them pretty much just for that alone. Right.
Yeah.
So we can, I think, skip down to verse 16.
Saying, what shall we do to these men? For that indeed a notable miracle hath been done by them, is manifest to all them that dwell in Jerusalem, and we cannot deny it. But that it spread no further among the people, let us straitly threaten them, that they speak henceforth to no man in this name.
Right. And that's what their objective is ultimately. It says, but that it spread no further among the people. They want to make sure God is in the path, like the way we used to do things, and like I keep saying, even though it was without understanding, it was still good, because even though they didn't have understanding, like it says in Acts, was it Romans 2? Even though they don't have understanding, they have a natural law
And that's the
within
law,
them,
right.
just naturally, they do by nature the things contained in the law, right? So, but like it says, but that it spread no further among the people. So now they see this, them praising God, in the way that they know how and praying to him. That's an absolute no.
Right. Right.
It
Yeah,
says,
they
let
didn't
us
want that to
straightly.
spread no more.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, they didn't want to spread no more, so they got to shut that down.
Right. They want to get rid of it. Right.
Right.
So, they said, the Sadducees said, let us straightly threaten them that
Right.
they speak henceforth to no man in this name.
His name, right. Yeah.
So they've been trying to get rid of the name of Jesus since Jesus came on the scene.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's no different today.
Mhm.
But you can read verse 18.
And they called them and commanded them not to speak at all, nor teach in the name of Jesus. But Peter and John answered and said unto them, whether it be right in the sight of God to hearken unto you more than, hold on. But Peter and John answered and said unto them, whether it be right in the sight of God to hearken unto you more than unto God, judge ye.
Right. So, go ahead. You can read verse 20.
For we cannot but speak the things which we have seen and heard.
Right. So, and then ultimately for us, if there's anything we can learn from this, is that regardless of what anybody else thinks, we're going to do what thus saith the Lord. So
Right. Right.
that's what I have for that.
Praise God. And it is up a little further. Let's see here. It is up a little further to top off what you just said. It is let's see here. Man, where is it at? Okay, so they're gonna call him and tell him not to speak in the name of Jesus, and they threaten him. Man, that's not. I think it's probably in 3, but in one of these chapters, they said we ought to obey God rather than man.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Just backing up what you said. So,
Absolutely.
but that's what we are, man. That's the world we live in. Being on both sides of the spectrum. Like I saw when it was allowed, and people had respect for the word of God. I mean, even if you, even if you, I remember, like, even if you didn't go to church, right? We still, like, I have friends of mine that live next door to me. They didn't go to church. You know what I'm saying? But you know what they did? Like anytime they walked by a church or something, they wouldn't curse. I remember we be walking home from school or walking through the neighborhood. We'd be cussing like sailors as kids. We get away from our parents. We talk crazy, right? But
Right.
as soon as we walk by a church, we be like, "Hey man, hey, hold on, don't say nothing." And as soon as we walk past the church, then we might get to cussing again. You know what I'm saying? But that's how much respect we had for.
Right.
And I came up in it, but like I said, I had friends next door to me, my god brothers and stuff like that. They weren't going to church like we were, but I remember my friends. I remember those days when we'd go past the church, and we just have, we pay homage to it by not letting foul stuff come out our mouth, And even though we ain't know what we was doing, it don't make sense now. But still, I'm just showing how everybody, for the most part, they welcome the commandments, they welcome the word, and nowadays everybody's against it. So just one more scripture I wanted to bring out, and let's see here. Let's see here if I can find it here. Okay, so I think it's Isaiah 29. Isaiah 29, and let's pick this up at verse 15. Isaiah 29, verse 15. Isaiah 29 and verse 15.
Woe unto them that seek deep to hide their counsel from the Lord,
Mhm.
and their works are in the dark. And they say, Who seeth us, and who knoweth us?
And that's mainly what we at today. People think that the Lord is just, in heaven somewhere. And some people don't believe in heaven at all. Some people don't believe, they call it a pie in the sky, as if like we reaching for some, or we trying to get something that don't exist, right? But on the other hand, you have some people feel like, well, hey, this has been talked about for years. This has been talked about forever. We ain't never seen the Lord come back, even though they talked about it. So, it don't really exist. And if they do think it exists, they do things as if God can't see it. And that's mainly, you look at what's going on today, people doing things as if like the Lord just gonna allow people to get away with this, So notice what he said. What's up, Brother Cam? Say, warn to them that seek deep to hide their counsel from the Lord, and their works in the dark. Excuse me. And they say, who seeth us and who knoweth us? What else to say? 16.
Surely your turning of things upside down shall be esteemed as the potter's clay.
Uh-huh.
For shall the work say of him that made it, He made me not?
So notice
Or
what
shall
he say. So notice what he say. He say, surely your turning of things upside down shall be esteemed as the potter's clay. Like, for example, just imagine God is the potter, we are the clay. So he's saying that works that you do, it's going to be looked at the potter's clay. Like, for example, the clay that's been molded by the potter is now mainly saying to the potter, you don't know what you're doing. You saying a man and a woman's supposed to be together, you don't know what you're doing. I was born this way. I was born as a man, I like men. I was born as a woman, I like women. You don't know what you're doing. You know, you telling us we got to keep these laws and go to church. You don't know what you're doing. You know, and that's what he's saying here. He says, surely your turning of things upside down shall be esteemed as a potter's clay, for the work shall say of him that made it what?
He made me not.
Right. So
Or
that's
shall,
and that's mainly what we're saying. We just looking at the Lord like he don't know what he doing. The clay is talking to the potter and saying to him, you don't know what you're doing. You didn't make me. So that's mainly what society is saying when we try to take what the Lord has established. First and foremost, his word, and his word is good everywhere. But as the clay, we want to tell the potter, look, you out of line. You don't know what you was doing. Look, the kids don't need the word. But yet and still, like we were talking earlier, but we can push all type of immorality inside the schools and feed that to them. But we can't put the 10 Commandments up. But that's the clay telling the potter, look, your way of doing things is not good. What else to say?
or shall the thing framed say of him that framed it, he had no understanding?
That's right. And so the thing framed is saying to the thing that framed it that he ain't got no understanding. He's asking that question like, should that be the case? And we know, dealing with the word, that shouldn't be the case, but that's just where we are now. Like I say, Project Pat, he was very big in the industry, and so for the Lord to work on him like that, and hopefully he can come, wholly into the knowledge of the truth at some point, the more and more the word start to spread. But for them to get an attitude and get mad and want to sue this brother for going to school and talking about God, that lets you know where we are in society. And yes, Brother Kevin, that was a great scripture Brother Little Nate brought out, man. And thank you, Sister Cheryl. We really appreciate you guys for tuning in, and we just trying to do our part and just keep the word going and stuff like that, and also staying abreast as what's going on. So, have anything, Nate?
Oh, that's it. Great.
All right.
Good stuff.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in. Lord willing, we'll see you guys once again next Tuesday, same time, same place. And other than that, you guys have a great week, and Lord willing, we'll see you all this Sabbath.